Hi, and welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. I'm Chris Lucian, and co-host is Austin Chadwick. And today we're going to, in reverse order, cover one by one the Agile Manifesto principles and maybe even end with the preamble. But the first episode of this series is going to start at the 12th principle. And so at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective and then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. So Austin, what are your thoughts on this principle?
Yeah. I believe, when I first learned about this principle, I was applying it in a very Scrum 2 week sort of fashion. And so, similarly to how the code, if you don't compile, build, and test until every 2 weeks, for example, uh, you probably have more problems. Um, and while doing that at the 2 week cadence, as far as reflecting and tuning and adjusting, was better than what I was doing before to Waterfall shop, which was like once a year or once every 6 months.
Yeah.
One thing that jumps out at me with this principle is just like with code, what kind of continuous delivery does to code. I believe this is what mobbing does to reflection and tuning and
Mhm.
adjustment. Um, I believe that true mobbing, where you're kind of following what Woody has talked about, where it's like all the brilliant minds, same place, same time, same computer, and let's turn up the good on flow efficiency. In healthy mobs I've seen, you are doing this at the minute, second, at worst hour
Mhm.
level. Which sounds crazy, right? Like, how do you get anything done if you're reflecting and adjusting all the time? But to me, it's kind of like, how do you drive to the store without turning the wheel constantly? Right?
Right.
If you're dealing with high uncertainty and high interdependence, which is kind of what Agile is built for, you are going to be adjusting constantly. And so, uh, not always necessary, right? Maybe you have a mob makeup that it's working great. Your ID is perfect. Couldn't it be better? Your tools are perfect. Couldn't it be better? The way Chris and I talk to each other is spot on, out of a textbook of some kind, you know. The code we write, crystal clear, perfect. I doubt a lot of that. So basically, as you're doing the work, you're discovering things that you could be doing better. And um, to not monologue too long, what I noticed with the big batches of kind of bigger agile is that a lot of it wouldn't get done because the experiment was too big. Where at the mobbing level, often the adjustment is, hey, do this shortcut, not that one. Or, hey, let's install this plugin. It only takes 30 seconds and let's try it, you know.
Mhm.
Most of the experiments are really small and you get feedback really fast and then you're changing course really quickly. Um, there's my monologue. You got one?
Yeah. No, yeah. So I'll add on. I agree, and I think even this embodies even the double loop learning as well, and even reflecting on how the team takes in new information. And so I remember kind of in one of the early days of mobbing for me, it was very much like, oh, there's somebody on the team is learning a larger variety of things from the outside and bringing them in, and and so there's kind of a reflection of how do we encourage that even among other team members because and I kind of talk about the virtuous loop thing and having those ideas come in. And so, in a like high psychological safety environment, when people can actually give each other feedback and the team can reflect on how the team operates, then the team reflecting can actually have new opinions based on ideas that were taken in from the outside as well. And so. I find it very interesting when a mob has team members go off to a conference and they go to different talks, and so maybe that mob went to the conference together, but they stayed apart the whole time. And comparing that to a mob that stayed together the whole time, the feedback is much more diverse but less focused in one scenario and very focused but actionable in the other. And you compare that to a mob that doesn't go to conferences at all, and so you kind of going off on this little tangent about reflection, to me, it's interesting that you have both the regularly adjusting behavior, but also this ability to have different experiences come together to allow for either refinement or exploration in the learning, the space that you're learning in. And so, this principle is very important to me, and I think important to mobbing in general, and then finding ways to learn better and faster through the double loop learning style as well is just very exciting to me.
Real quick, one quick breakdown, because I think it went over my head, possibly.
Yeah.
Can you define double loop exactly? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think in single loop learning, it's just like you have an experience and then you learn from it. And double loop learning is this idea of inspecting the process of how you learn, right? And so just quickly pulling up a random image on Google, it's like assess the beliefs about the value of the intended outcome and assumptions behind
Ah.
action strategies. So not, I'm learning about the code, but assessing what you value about what you're
Mhm.
going to learn about the code. And
Mhm.
so it's taking even a farther step out. And so I think that teams reflect constantly in a mob, but it also and then tunes and adjusts their behavior accordingly, like the principle says. But I think that there's also this outer loop that occurs, and I think that it's also much easier to do that because I think a longer term retrospective might revolve around the second loop where an
I
impromptu
see.
feedback session in a mob might focus on something that is in that immediate moment. But um, mobs learn faster and they have more robust learning than I think teams of individuals that get together only for meetings, right? And I think that's because they're all of that reflection has more meaning and it's more fine-tuned, and the variety of experience, whether it's focused or diffuse,
Sure.
will result in a better result than having a single experience and then understanding that's
Gotcha.
its implications.
Yeah, going deeper and beyond the surface. Yeah, I think I totally follow you there, and I think this kind of ties back to the Cynefin model
Yeah.
in that I believe Agile, Lean, a lot of these things only make sense if you're out of the simple.
Mhm.
And so at the system level, none of this makes sense unless everyone involved knows you're in the complex, chaotic space where you're turning the wheel. It's not like we're in a drag race where you step on the gas and hold the wheel straight, right? And so this stuff sounds bananas if that's what you think the work is. Um, when it's more like a 40 step path through uncharted territory where there's no map, right? And we
Mhm.
gotta know we know we gotta get to the top of the mountain through dirt roads or regular roads or what have you, but it's been uncharted. We haven't done it before, right? And so uh, that's when reflecting this often becomes super valuable. If you're in a super simple space, you don't need to reflect every 2 feet if you're just driving straight. But I think more than likely, if you're doing software at all, you're in the more complex, chaotic.
Right.
And so, um, but I think the difficulty is a lot of people involved in the process see it as a very simple thing, like they're ordering a burger. And so
Right.
that's a difficult side of this as well, is convincing your team to reflect more often when they think they're just building simple burgers. Probably feels ridiculous to them. Yeah.
Right. And I also think that so another one of these diagrams talks about double loop learning as challenging the assumptions
Yeah.
that that are guiding the actions, right? And so I think that sometimes it is appropriate to to be very blunt about that and just say, let's have an assumptions retro. And it's like, let's list our assumptions and then,
Mhm.
experiment with the idea of what do we, how do we look at this as if it's not true? And what would we do if we assumed that our core assumption right now is not true? And so I like the book Liminal Thinking for kind of this sort of thing where your whole belief structure is based on a series of assumptions that you made based off of your experiences in the past. And so, how can you change your actions to be the right thing if your assumptions are completely wrong? And how do you challenge your assumptions and work with them as if they're not true? Um, and so, I think that that's how teams get to things like mobbing, or maybe they stop mobbing to do something else. The you have to sometimes act as if your assumption is false, even to break out of your core beliefs at that time.
Mhm.
Um, and so I don't know. Liminal Thinking is a great book around that topic.
Nice. I actually have it on my queue. I will
Yeah.
listen and read it soon, Chris. You challenged my assumptions about what I should read next. I assessed them and added this book to the list. So
Nice, nice.
awesome. Anything else to
Well,
add, Chris, before we wrap this one up?
Uh, no, I think that's it. So, for our audience out there, if you maybe have a an experience of how the team has reflected and how the team's behaviors have been tuned and adjusted around it, we'd love to hear it in the chat. And if you maybe haven't had thought about this assumptions and challenging the assumptions bit before in double loop learning, then maybe share this episode with others on your team and maybe find a way to go from there. And like, subscribe, comment, and more. And we'll see you on all the social medias. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
See ya.